Hi everyone. Today we're going to discuss another interesting topic, and that has to do with AI and rejecting it. And more specifically, as you may be aware, in many cases, there is a lot of criticism online about AI, specifically from the creative fields, which is understandable. So we're going to dive into that a little bit more today. Um, so on the surface, there appears to be a disagreement about technology, about what it is and what it's not. And the current reaction to AI is not fundamentally about AI itself. Um, so it is rather a response to how survival is structured. And in my case, for example, AI has significantly increased my ability to function in my daily life. As someone with disabilities, I rely consistently for support, for cognitive processing, structuring information, emotional regulation, and maintaining stability. So this type of support is not provided by institutions or existing systems. And access to that could be very limited, conditional, or sometimes entirely absent. And AI for me manages to fill that gap. It does provide assistance that is immediate, adaptive, and continuously available. So from my personal perspective, AI increases my autonomy. It does provide access to things that the system does not. So to understand the broader reaction to AI it is necessary to define the system into which it is introduced. Survival within the system depends on money, right? So money depends on employment, and employment is determined by institutions and market conditions. So access to basic resources is therefore conditional and not guaranteed. And now where AI comes into that is that introduces automation, and automation reduces the need for human labor across many domains. So within the current structure, this translates directly into reduced opportunities for income, increased instability, and a heightened risk of losing access to essential resources. So the perceived threat is not theoretical, it is structural, it is real, and there is a growing mismatch between technological advancement and the systems that organize human survival. So technology is evolving rapidly, increasing efficiency, capability, and access. But in contrast, the structures that determine access to resources and survival to remain rigid and largely unchanged. So they continue to operate within principles that are centuries old. Access is tied to labor, and labor is tied to income, and then income is tied to survival. So this creates this ever-expanding gap. As technology advances, it exposes the limitations of these systems more clearly, and the faster progress occurs, the more visible the system's inability to adopt becomes. So this visibility generates pressure, and the pressure is experienced as fear. The fear associated with AI originates from this widening gap between advancing technology and outdated systems. So it is not the technology itself that destabilizes people, but the fact that the system cannot integrate that technology without threatening access to survival. So instead of identifying the system as the source of instability, the reaction is redirected toward more immediate and visible targets. The technology becomes the focus, and the individuals who use it become the focus as well. And this is where conflict and shaming emerge. And online platforms do quite a lot of disservice by amplifying this dynamic. High conflict perspectives, of course, spread more easily than nuanced analysis, and simplified narratives gain more visibility than complex explanations. And as a result, the conversation becomes polarized, and the underlying structure issue is obscured. From my perspective, exclusion from the system existed long before AI. Barriers such as institutional bias, lack of accessibility, and conditional support have always limited access to stability. So AI did not create these conditions or barriers. It provided rather a way to, for me personally, to navigate that. Nevertheless, they are still very pressing and real when it comes to access for everybody and survival. So both support for AI and resistance to AI, in a sense, originate from the same underlying condition that a system in which survival is insecure and dependent on unstable factors. The difference lies in how those conditions are interpreted by people, and therefore where the response is coming from. That's where it is directed towards. So the question is not necessarily whether AI is inherently beneficial or harmful, but it's more relevant to why technological process and progress increases instability within the current system and what it reveals about how survival is organized. Um, so, in a sense, all of those debates do actually highlight a much bigger thing that cannot be ignored, really, because it is pervasive across all domains and industries, and that is basically the system within which they operate from. And this is why I entirely understand why creative fields are very reluctant and shaming other users, which of course is not the correct thing to do or the correct way to go about this. But ultimately, even as someone in IT, myself, we are all impacted by the system that we actually live in, which is mainly concerning our survival, not necessarily the technology advancements that we're experiencing nowadays and have been for the past few years. Um, so I hope that that was interesting. I hope that you learned something new today. This is a very interesting topic on itself, but as I'm saying, it does originate way in the past as a structural issue of the systems and governments that we live in. All of those structures, inadequacies, and outdated laws and policies are basically being highlighted in a major way worldwide because of the increasing gap between technology and evolution and the systems that we live in. So thank you so much for listening. Have a nice day and take care. All of those